prayer. Start off with the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, and then the foundation of all good qualities. A bit different from before, but I thought we would try something different. Oh, there it is. Thinking of all sentient beings, not just oneself, going for refuge, generally bodhicitta. You think you're like leading all the sentient beings in the practice, or surrounded by all sentient beings who are in the aspect of human beings. Usually say that because you're still experiencing their suffering, but able to speak, and therefore when you lead them in the prayers, then they can join in. I take refuge till I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. That one. That's the one. Thank you. The foundation of all good qualities is kind and perfect Guru. Correctly following the Guru is the root of the path. By my clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon the Guru with great respect. When I have discovered that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once, it is extremely difficult to find again and is greatly meaningful, please bless me to unceasingly generate the mind taking its essence day and night. This body and life are changing like a water bubble. Remember how quickly they perish and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of black and white karma follow. When I have found definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be conscientious in abandoning even the slightest collection of shortcomings, and in accomplishing all virtuous deeds. When I have recognized shortcomings of samsaric perfections, that there is no satisfaction in enjoying them, they are the door to all suffering, and they cannot be trusted. Please bless me to generate strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Through my being led by this pure thought with great remembrance, alertness and conscientiousness, please bless me to make keeping the individual liberation vows the root of the teachings my essential practice. Just as I have fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother transmigratory beings. By my seeing this, please bless me to train a supreme bodhicitta which bears the responsibility of freeing transmigratory beings. Even if I develop only bodhicitta, without familiarizing myself with the three types of morality, I cannot achieve enlightenment. By my seeing this well, please bless me to keep the vow of the sons of the victorious ones with fervent effort. By my having pacified distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzed the meaning of reality, please bless me to quickly generate within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. When I have become a suitable vessel by training in the common path, please bless me to immediately enter the holy gateway of the fortunate beings, the supreme of all vehicles, the Vajrayana. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping my vows and samaya purely. When I have gained effortless conviction in this, please bless me to protect them even at the cost of my life. Then when I've realized exactly the vital points of the two stages, the essence of the tantric sets, and I'm enjoying the yoga 4 sessions with effort without being distracted by non-meditation objects. Please bless me to accomplish these according to the teachings of the holy beings. Thus may the virtuous friends who reveal the noble path and the spiritual practitioners who correctly accomplish it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely the collections of outer and inner obstacles. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma, and by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. Okay, so I think we can sort of think quietly to ourselves about what we've just been reciting, and main thing anyway, try to get the most powerful bodhicitta motivation for engaging in this activity as you're able to. Bodhicitta, which is a mind that cares more for others than oneself. I think it would be good to start off by talking a bit about what we've done so far, to have more of a sense of where we are at the moment with this text. So the name of the text generally is the middle length stage of path by Lama Tsongkhapa. So it's called the middle length one because there's one that's shorter and there's another one that's longer. Sometimes it's called short Lamrim because there's one that's longer. It's the short one, there's a longer one. So it's all relative, right? Okay, so anyway, so middle length Lamrim, middle length stages of path. So yeah, well, I mean, at the beginning there's before actually getting into the meditations. So I mean, this is a text that was really written so that you'd have an idea of how to approach the Buddha's teachings in terms of like the order of meditations and so on, how it all fits together in terms of one's practice, one's meditation. And so, we talk about the source of the teaching. So Lama Tsongkhapa considers his teachings on the stage of path to be a commentary on Lama Atisha's the lamp of the path, because the whole sort of setup of this teaching by Lama Tsongkhapa is sort of the structure. Let's say the structure is the practices of the beings, of those different beings of three different types of capacity. Those who are only interested in their next life, having a good life after this one. Those who are want more than that, want to achieve liberation from psychic existence. And then that's the middle length, middling capacity. Short, small capacity, middling capacity, then great capacity. That's the sort of Bodhisattva path. So that means not wanting just your own personal liberation, but enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So, roughly speaking. So, and that comes from Lama Atisha's Bodhipada Pradipam, the lamp of the path to enlightenment. Yeah, so Lama Atisha, pretty amazing. Great Indian master who came to Tibet, lived in Tibet, died in Tibet, despite the predictions that he would have a much shorter life by going to Tibet. But he went anyway, because he saw the purpose and anyway, what he did and the legacy of what he taught is pretty amazing. So yeah, but of course, that ultimately the source of this teaching is the Buddha. There's no question about that. So thinking about who this teaching comes from, in terms of the Buddha, Buddha Shakyamuni, Lama Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, all really quite amazing people, and that's quite an inspiration really, and that sort of makes a difference, I think, in terms of you feel like, oh, this is really worth learning because of who wrote it. I mean, written by Lama Tsongkhapa, but also coming from Lama Atisha, from the Buddha. Yeah, and then the teaching itself is pretty amazing because two main things, I suppose. I mean, besides the fact that it can be really. There are Lamrim teachings like the Lama Tsongkhapa's great exposition of the stage of path, which is really huge, and then the middle length one is not short exactly, is it? And then there's a shorter one, so it's not so much the length, but the way in which it formulates everything in terms of like how to practice, and that's what it's all about really. And then the fact that Lama Atisha, and then following him Lama Tsongkhapa. Also trace the ideas, some of the most important ideas, to Nagarjuna and Maitreya, the teachings of Nagarjuna and Maitreya. That also is a really big thing, a really important feature of these teachings. Really makes them quite outstanding and quite amazing, really. So then Lama Tsongkhapa also then talks about a few things about how to go about teaching this kind of subject, how to get the most out of studying such a subject like we are at the moment. And then he goes into the topics, which start off just like in that text that we just read, or that prayer, if you like, that we just read, starting off with Guru devotion and so on. So yeah. So the first one, I think some texts they talk about like relying upon a qualified spiritual guide and different names. But anyway, it's Guru devotion. It's to do with how you devote yourself to a qualified teacher. Devote yourself to, I don't know, some people maybe don't like to think in terms of devotion, but anyway, it seems to capture the meaning better than just relying upon, consulting, following. It really has a lot to do with devotion. The more you get into it, then the more you feel like there is some kind of devotion in the mind, and that's a really important part of the way you relate to your teacher. Of course, Lama Tsongkhapa talks about the qualifications or the qualities a person should have if they're going to guide you on the path to enlightenment. So he talks about that, and he talks about it quite a bit in this text, and in the great exposition of the stage path even more. Anyway, so talk about the 10 qualities of a Mahayana guru, which comes from the Sutra Alankara of Maitreya. And I don't know, it's kind of in some ways it's just it's something quite normal in a way. You have when you relate to something in a positive way, then you get more out of it. I remember my teacher, Ginte Chok, he just held up a mug and he said, like if you look at this mug in terms of how, if you look at it and think about the cracks and so on, it's sort of like, sort of you feel a bit dissatisfied with it. But when you just think, well, this is exactly what I need for drinking tea out of. It's got a few cracks in it, maybe it's a bit stained and so on, but then, you're satisfied with it. And so your own way of looking at things, it makes a whole big difference in what you get out of it. So, like just with our friends, if you focus on their faults and their mistakes, it's sort of like it can grow into an obsession, and then you end up not liking them. Whereas if you relate to them more in terms of their good things and how they've helped you and their good qualities and so on, then you're satisfied, you're happy to be with them and so on. So it's all it's all your own choice and your own mind, really, what you get out of the relationship, whether it's couples, whether it's with other family members, friends. Yeah, it makes a big difference. And then, there's no question that you do actually need a teacher I guess I'm saying teacher with a big T, like anyway, like, guru, somebody who's going to guide you along the path. I mean, like, I think it's the great Kadampa Geshe, who's quite a long time before, well, after Atisha, but before Lama Tsongkhapa. I think it was him who said that, made the point that even with ordinary things that you can see, you need somebody to show you. Like I know that the example that Khyalchit Chaturumshi gave recently. He was talking about these blessing strings. You can't work out how to do it except by somebody telling you, and that's something you can see. You can actually see it. You can pick it up. You've been given them. You get them. Usually get them in initiations and other things. There's this string that you tie around the neck and so on. But you can't work out how to do it until somebody shows you. So of course, when we're talking about something which you can't see, and which on top of that, we've never ever been there before to liberation and enlightenment. So we've never gone on that path before. So, I mean, of course we need somebody to show us the way. And I think that Alex Berzin's book on, the way to relate to one's, guru or spiritual guide or virtuous friend, is he makes an interesting point, and really quite an important point, which is that you won't necessarily have the same teacher teaching you everything and guiding you the whole way along the path. You might have somebody who's, it could be like this, somebody who's is particularly skilled in a certain part of the path and could guide you so far. And then maybe your karma, maybe in terms of, it could be the knowledge or experience, then you find yourself following other teachers for other practices, and maybe, so you see what I mean? So it's like that anyway. And so two things really. You definitely need somebody, and maybe it can be more than one person. You definitely need somebody, and and what you get out of the relationship depends, you can almost say, completely upon yourself, on the basis of the person being qualified. I mean, if you just decide you're going to devote yourself to just somebody on the street, and you think that you're going to get enlightened because you can have this perfect view of this person, that's not going to work. But having found somebody who is qualified, you sort of learn about the qualities, and then you come to the conclusion this person would be good. I think this is going to work, and so then you make the connection with them. Then they might not be perfect, and more to the point, your own mind is not perfect. So even if the person were perfect, you wouldn't see that. You project your own negativities. So the thing is that it really comes down mostly, if not completely, to your own attitude and your own view of things. So that's really important, I think. So anyway, then the next thing, like in that, the foundation of all good qualities are talking about the precious rebirth, the leisures and endowments. So this is all to do with recognizing that even if maybe it's not like everything is completely perfect in my life, but I don't have problems that are completely insurmountable. And I might not have everything that you can imagine, but I have enough. I have what I need to be able to practice. And I think it's quite nice on to combine that, like they do in the teachings. That not all teachers, but the old, what do you call it, the sort of previous generation of teachers like Gyaltsen Choden Rinpoche, and then some others. They would always talk about, now we have this precious human life, which is so difficult to get, and we've met with the teachings of the Buddha, which are so difficult to meet with, and we've also come into contact with a qualified teacher, which is also not easy. It's easy to take things for granted, but when you think about it, it's not easy. And I think it's really worth each day, at the beginning of each day, to think about that. It's just, you're making your mind happy, but for good reasons. It really is amazing. This life that we have really is amazing. And then on top of having this amazing life, to have met with the Buddha's teachings, and for me, not just to have met with the Buddha's teachings, but also Lama Tsongkhapa's interpretation of the Buddha's teachings, because the more you go into Lama Tsongkhapa's writings, he's just amazing. He's really amazing. So not something on top of what the Buddha taught, but a really clear explanation of what the Buddha taught and what the Buddha meant. Then not just that, so that's amazing. That's another thing, just to feel like this is just so amazing. This is so amazing that I have this. Not only that, but to have qualified teachers, people who really understand, especially if they can teach from experience, but at least somebody who's kind-hearted and really understands. Then that's amazing. The Buddha's teachings, but then not just that, but somebody who is like really a real master of Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings is really amazing. We have people like that in the world. Gyaltsen Rinpoche, His Holiness, still doesn't teach so much these days, but and there are others. And in the Bay Area, we have several all around Europe, all around the States. There are really some really good teachers. Yeah, so I think that I find that helpful anyway, to start each day in that way. And then thinking about yeah. So also, actually, there was something else I wanted to say about in relation to the guru, which is something I quite like. Is I came across this idea from the teachings of Shabkar, Shabkar Sotu Drangdral. He's got this big, thick book translated into English. Now I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, he was a pretty amazing practitioner from a few centuries ago in Tibet. So he said that he thought that Pamasambhava, Lama Atisha, and Lama Tsongkhapa were basically the same person. So I find that quite helpful to think about. And then, when you sort of expand on that a bit, so the Buddha, Pamasambhava, Lama Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, one's own present guru, thinking of being the same person. Because when you go, I think I sort of, when we were going through this topic, I think I went off into a little bit of Pavanga Dechen Yingpo's liberation, liberation in our hand, where his take on, actually what I want to say is his analysis of the whole kind of like guru devotion kind of area topic. Really quite phenomenal, I think. So he makes the point that, you know, somebody like the Buddha Shakyamuni, how to approach this. So the thing is, you know, like he's somebody who, you know, like for us, I mean, for someone like me anyway, especially, I guess I can't really say for you, but, you know, it's like, I've got this life at the moment, who knows when it's going to come to an end. When it comes to an end, I have no control about where I'm going. I don't have that kind of control. But someone like the Buddha, I mean, it's just completely different, it's a whole different kind of reality. Because, you know, the Buddha is not somebody who's, of course, you know, like at the end of his life, he didn't just become non-existent, right? He didn't just become non-existent. And he's not like us going from life to life. It's a completely different thing. It's like, you know, his work was finished, so he went. There's some story I heard about that recently. It's like there was one person left that for him to liberate. Everybody else that he was going to liberate, he already liberated, but there's one person left. So he, you know, he met this person and he, you know, showed them the way, liberated them, and then he died because there's nothing else left to do. He'd done everything he came into the world for. But then it doesn't mean, you know, like, I guess you have to think a little bit in ordinary terms, you know, like, you imagine you're the Buddha and you've got complete control, and so, okay, you've done everything that you wanted to do in this life, you've taught everything, taught everybody, now it's time to go. What are you going to do, you know? It's not like suddenly you're just going to leave this whole world in the lurch. You've got this compassion. It was compassion that brought you into this world to help the people in this world. You gave these teachings which are supposed to help the world for several centuries, several, I don't know, millennia, several thousand years, however many thousand years the Buddha's teachings remain. People still practicing them. But you have the capacity to appear in different ways according to the needs of sentient beings. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you be Pamasambhava? Why wouldn't you be Lama Atisha? Why wouldn't you be Lama Tsongkhapa? Why wouldn't you be, you know, the teacher that's teaching us at the moment? And that's one of the things that Pavonka talks about. You know, the fact that you know, the Buddha. There's no way the Buddha isn't there helping, and the best way to help is by showing the path. And I mean, really, the best way to show the path is by teaching, guiding in that way. There's no reason really why your own teacher, you know, the qualified Mahayana guru, you can't say they're not fully enlightened. You can't say that this is not Shakyamuni Buddha, and there's no reason why it wouldn't be Shakyamuni Buddha. So anyway, these are, I think, very fruitful things to think about, and yeah, I find very, it's pretty amazing actually. I guess there's a lot of amazing things when it comes down to it. Anyway, I think, I don't know if I really made my point the way I intended to, but there is that possible reality, you know, and it's your choice to sort of choose some kind of like some extraordinary reality or some kind of like ordinary reality. Again, it's your choice. I mean, there's nothing. You see, when you learn about the Arya Bodhisattvas, you know, so we all know what Bodhisattva is, somebody who has bodhicitta, somebody who's completely engaged in the path to enlightenment, right? So then Arya Bodhisattva is somebody who has not just the bodhicitta, but has you know a deep awareness of reality, so like a very direct grasp of reality, ultimate truth, and all that. And so even then, the power to, according to the teachings, Nagarjuna, Chandakirti, they have the ability to appear in many different forms all at once. Some of them, like thousands of forms all at once. So there's, it's just possible that actually Buddha Shakyamuni, who's not different from Bambasambhava and so on, is actually all of the teachers in your life, all of your teachers, the teachers that are guiding you, whether you've got one teacher or two or three or half a dozen or whatever, but anyway, could be all of them. There's no reason why they could not be all of them. I mean, I know for some people to talk this way would sound pretty weird actually, but I mean, enlightened beings, they're just not ordinary like us. I remember many years ago when I was at Manjushri Institute in the north of England. I guess I'd heard about this idea of having many bodies, one person having many bodies. So I said to this friend of mine, how could that be? And he said, well, but what my question is, why have we only got one body? That's a bit of a different way of looking at it. Yeah. So that's there are so many things to think about, and they're all very inspiring, and it's difficult to sort of, maybe it's actually unrealistic to expect to sort of be thinking of all of them all the time, but I think it's nice to think about these things sometimes and have that kind of awareness. I think there can many sort of ideas and positive thoughts that can, even though you're not thinking of all of them all the time, they have this overall effect on your state of mind and your direction and so on. So that's one thing anyway. Yeah. Also, like they say, if you say that if they're an enlightened being, they should appear perfect, well, that doesn't work. Because our karma and our minds because of our karma, because our minds are too obscure, we wouldn't be able to see, something perfect. Sort of one amazing thing about an enlightened being appearing as a guru is appearing in a way that you can relate to. So anyway, that means appearing to have faults. And if you're going to say, well, they appear to have faults, so they must have faults, so they can't be an enlightened being. So this one isn't Buddha Shakyamuni. But then you probably end up using the same reasoning for everybody, and then you end up with no enlightened beings in your life. Anyway, so just thinking a bit like that. And in the in the Lamrim thing that we were reading out at the beginning of the class last year, it talked about the youthful Norsang and the Sadaprarutita, the always crying Bodhisattva. So Dorji Changlo Zanjinpa, who's the author of that Lamrim prayer, though he puts it as may I, in until I achieve enlightenment, so anyway, he expresses the aspiration to practice just like the youthful Norsang. I mean, that's his name anyway. Youthful Norsang and Saraparudita, the always crying Bodhisattva. So Saraparudita, I don't know much about him except that I can't remember if he's mentioned in this text, but he's certainly mentioned in, I think he is. He's certainly mentioned in the Lamrim Chenmo, the Great Expedition Stated Path. And mainly it's how you come across him there is not in terms of like his life story or something like that, but just his way of relating to his teachers. And you see from the words of his, from his words, how deeply he feels their affection for him and his affection for them and his gratitude to them. So that's having that's a very wholesome quality, I think, to have that kind of awareness. And then the always crying Bodhisattva. So yeah, I think he must have been well before the time of the Buddha. Maybe even in a different world, I don't know. But he's, if you get the, probably other Perfection of Wisdom sutras also, but there's one by, which is the 8,000 verse Perfection of Wisdom sutra. Of course, taught by the Buddha, translated by Edward Conze. And yeah, so some of the story of Sataprabhutita comes up at the end of that. So I've been reading that recently. I asked for it for a birthday present. My sister gave it to me as a birthday present. And so yeah, from what I've heard before and from what I've read so far, so this is somebody who, yeah, he actually, it's like it starts off with conversation between him and various enlightened beings. So these enlightened beings, he could receive teachings directly from them, but they actually advised him to go in search of Chubak. I can't remember what his Sanskrit name is now. Dharma something or other. Dharma something. I can't remember. Anyway, Chubak. So they advised him to go in search of that particular Bodhisattva with whom he had a very close connection and who had been guiding him for many lifetimes. So they said that he should go to them for teachings on the perfection of wisdom, for teachings on emptiness. So, he goes on a very long journey to see him. And it's interesting because his question is, it's like sort of a bit funny really, because he was talking with these bodhisattvas, right? Not these bodhisattvas, these Tathagatas, these Buddhas. And then somehow they vanished. And so he decided that what he wanted to ask his, this teacher, Chopak, Dharma, whatever it was, he wanted to ask him, where did those Tathagatas come from? And where did they go to? So I was thinking about that. First of all, I was thinking it's a bit kind of, it just seemed a bit of a strange question, but I was thinking, well, I suppose actually, if I think about, I think of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, that would be quite interesting. Where did he come from? That would be quite interesting to know. Where did he come from? Where does something like that come from? Or of course he hasn't gone yet, and I hope He never will, but anyway, I guess it's I don't know. Anyway, he had that question. I mean, different people have different questions, right? That was his question. Where did they come? Where did they come from, and where did they go to? So anyway, so he goes in search of Chobak, his guru, and so he wants to make some kind of offering, and so he doesn't have any money, so he starts cutting pieces of his flesh off. I suppose he's going to sell a piece of flesh. I don't know who's going to buy his piece of flesh, but anyway. But so anyway, he's cutting some piece of his flesh off, and then he meets with this young woman who asks him what he's doing, and that's as far as I got in the story. But I have heard a bit more of the story, which is that he does meet Chobak eventually, and so he asks Chobak, those Tathagatas, those Buddhas, where did they come from? Where did they go to? And basically the reply from Chobak was, there's no coming and there's no going. And it was, as soon as he said that, he got it. He realized emptiness. He got the realization. So he could have got all those teachings on emptiness from those Tathagatas, but the one that he had the connection with and whose teaching had this incredible impact on him was Chobak, who wasn't even an enlightened being, but he had that connection with him. So there's this verse of just by the way, some of you might know, there's this verse from Nagarjuna that is often His Holiness nearly always used to begin teachings with this verse, and it mentions no coming, no going. No coming, no going. So that's where that comes from. Anyway, so he taught him no coming, no going, and then he got the realization because of his special relationship with this person, but not just because of that special karmic relationship, but also he was focused one point on meeting him to get teachings on the perfection of wisdom. Anyway, just by the way, so that's so what is there to learn from that? That's worth thinking. So Doji-chan Lozan Jinpa says he wants to until he's enlightened, he wants to have that kind of connection and relationship with his gurus in life after life, just like the youthful Norsang and the always crying Bodhisattva. I remember mentioning this always crying Bodhisattva before, and I said I got a picture, and I would try to find it. So in between times I did find it, but now I've got no idea where it is. Again, sort of found it and lost it. So it sort of came and went, but I didn't get any realization from it. Okay, so precision rebirth. And then, thinking the meditation that goes hand in hand with thinking about the precision rebirth, meditating on death. And Lama Tsongkhapa advises us to think that today is my last day. And this is really useful, I think, very useful. Very useful. Something you might struggle with a bit. Because, you think, if I'm going to die today, then well, I'm definitely not going to go to work. That kind of thing. So, the main point is to cut through attachment to this life, to the short-term pleasures of this life, distractions. So that's something to keep in mind. And I think it's quite interesting that the more you are able to cultivate that kind of awareness that that thought, today is my last day, what that gradually brings about is, first of all, it brings you closer to the realization that you're going to die one day. And also close to the realization that even though, like, there's nowhere in the Lam Rim in general that's, in the Lam Rim teachings it says, talks about how death is certain, the time of death is uncertain, and the only thing that's going to help you at the time of death is your practice, is the Dharma. So it doesn't. One of the 3 points isn't not only you're gonna die, but you're gonna die today. Lama Tsongkhapa encourages us to think that way, and well, anyway, if you try it, you'll get some experience from it, I think. But and one of the things, like I say, I think is that it brings you closer to the actual, I guess I have to say, experience that you're going to die eventually. Because everybody knows they're going to die eventually. And actually everybody knows that it could be any time. I mean, we know that. Well, I mean, maybe if you're a little kid you don't. But most people that have been around a while, teenagers even, I guess, tend not to think about it, but you do know. But that's not necessarily the experience, so bring you closer to a sort of a real experience that you're going to die, and that it could be today. It actually could be today. So it just brings the fact of the reality of death closer, and that's useful. That's useful. Cutting through distractions, so you can be more focused. I think it does help. Then, of course, it talks about the lower realms. So after death, things don't just stop. You go on to another life. Could be a good one, could be a bad one. At this particular, earlier on in the Lamrim teachings, it talks about the lower realms. So hell realms and Preta realms we can't see, but animals you can see, and it's like, it's interesting actually. If you, again, it's one of those things. It may be difficult to be have the awareness all the time, but sometimes we need to be aware. Like, you see a fly, or you see I know on TV, one of these, something on YouTube. You see a toad, for example, or whatever it might be. It's quite easy, I guess, because of just like such strong habits. Habitual way of thinking doesn't really allow for that creature that you're looking at to think of it as actually a living being just like yourself. That's one thing, that's one layer. Then, to relate to them as actually one's mother, that's another layer really. But then also to relate to this being as, put it this way, that sentient being is in that form at the moment, right? I mean, it's horrific really, Just somehow the image that's coming to mind is something that, one of those short things on YouTube, is this toad, and somebody feeds it some kind of bug. So you know what it's like, they stick their tongue out and then it's kind of, So anyway, they're in that form, whether it's the one that's being eaten or whether it's the toad that's doing the eating. That sentient being is in that form because of their karma. They had the karma to be there. And I've also got that karma. The karma that ripened for me at the beginning of this life, or at the end of last life, led me here as a human being, and for them, whatever they were in their previous life, the karma that ripened meant that they're a toad, but that karma I also have. It's not like, we've all got a few karmas. We've all got huge numbers of karmas. Fortunately, some good ones, but you know the way things are in psychic existence, probably more of the bad ones. So anyway, you know, so to see this as being, this is what I might well be next life. I could easily be that next life. If I'm not careful, I could be that in my next life. Anyway, also like His Holiness says, even if you can't relate to lower realms, I mean, even being born as a human being again and again is, if that's samsara, then it would be good to get out. So anyway, yeah, so samsara. That after those, well, then after that, then of course talking about refuge and karma, right? So refuge and karma. Going for refuge to the Buddha. There's different levels of going for refuge to the Buddha, right? So going to refuge for the Buddha because you're really worried about your next life. So then you go for refuge to the Buddha, and then so they say, you know, even just going for refuge as you're dying, that would mean that you, maybe even for a few lifetimes, you know, you'd have a good life in psychic existence, relatively good anyway. Of course, you know, one problem is if you're not used to thinking about refuge during your lifetime, then there's not much chance you're going to think of going for refuge when you die. So, you know, it's something that needs to be a constant practice. And of course, becoming a constant practice is very much helped along by thinking that today is my last day. And, well, actually, you know, I don't know about Lama Tsongkhapa, but Lama Zopa, his advice was not just, I'm going to die today, but I'm going to die today, and where I'm going to be, you know, where I'm going on to is one of the lower realms. So again, you know, real certainty is one thing, but thinking that way helps. So anyway, one thing that it's going to help with is the refuge. The refuge will be stronger. So it means like every day, you know, you have the thought of refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So then when the actual time of death comes, then it's going to be, I don't know, I guess you could say that what you're going to tend to think about is what you've been in a habit of thinking about during your lifetime. So more likely to go for refuge when you're dying. Yeah, so that's one thing, but then also, like they say, what's much more reliable in terms of securing not just maybe a few good future lives, but you know, like many good future lives, is being careful with your karma, so purifying, avoiding destructive actions, destructive karma as much as possible, doing good things, dedicating. But then, of course, yeah, even that's not enough, because eventually, since you still haven't been able to, in other words, if you haven't been able to get rid of the mental afflictions, and especially the ignorance, which is what keeps you in psychic existence, then eventually that story is going to come to an end. You know, you can't get life after life forever, good life in psychic existence forever, just by practicing karma. Eventually, it's just going to break down. And so, what you really need is the practice of the three highest trainings in order to be able to break free of psychic existence completely. So, what actually cuts through the ignorance is the wisdom, higher training in wisdom. And what gives the wisdom the stability is the concentration, and then the foundation for both of those is the higher training in morality. And then that also is not enough. Then you also need to think of others. So just achieving liberation for yourself, when all of the sentient beings, so the infinite sentient beings, they've all been one's kind mother and father, and even if they hadn't, I mean, that's not the point in a way. The fact is that, especially because they've been one's father and mother countless times in past lives, but also in general because of the fact that even if I achieve liberation, what about them? Basically, that's the point. What about them? They also need help, and they need to achieve liberation, and not just liberation but enlightenment. So I have to achieve enlightenment in order to be able to show them the way. So in that way, going on to the practices of the person of great capacity, the Bodhisattva practices, starting off with bodhicitta. So bodhicitta, I mean, yeah, bodhicitta is pretty amazing, like they say, His Holiness often points out. Not just His Holiness, many of the great lamas, that if you want to purify, the best way to purify is with bodhicitta. Actually, meditating on bodhicitta purifies. It also accumulates merit. It brings you kind of like confidence and ease of mind in this very lifetime. Because with bodhicitta, then you're going to lead, more or less blameless life. So when death comes, you won't be what's the word I'm looking for? You won't be racked with guilt and remorse and about all the bad things that you did. So more relaxed death. And then, of course, what comes after is going to be much better because you created the causes for something better. So it's good for future lives as well. And then it's the most powerful way to do anything worthwhile, actually. So you want to achieve liberation. Well, practicing bodhicitta and practicing the Bodhisattva path is going to bring you liberation as well, just by the way. Yes, well, time's getting on, so we did bodhicitta anyway. So bodhicitta, you have two ways of, mainly they talk about two ways of meditating bodhicitta. There's this sevenfold cause and effect instruction, where you start off with equanimity, which isn't one of the seven, because it's not uniquely a Mahayana thing. Then recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother, thinking about their kindness, repaying the kindness, heartwarming love, or I think maybe affectionate love. Compassion, then special attitude and bodhicitta. Then you have the way to meditate on bodhicitta by equalizing, exchanging self and others, where you start off by with the equalizing self and others, recognizing we're oneself and all sentient beings are the same in wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. Then thinking about the many drawbacks, faults from self-cherishing, in other words, putting yourself first. Sometimes putting yourself first to the exclusion of thinking at all about others, but at least putting yourself first. Then think about the benefits of putting others first, cherishing others, putting others first. They say, what do you call it? Cherishing others and neglecting oneself. So up until now, we cherished ourselves and neglected others. So now, the benefits of cherishing others and neglecting oneself. But it's funny because they say that, and yet by cherishing others, putting others first, and by practicing bodhicitta in general, then the one who gains the most is yourself. So actually, it's the complete opposite of neglecting yourself, as it turns out. So I think the thing about maybe it's like this, when they talk about neglecting oneself, what they mean is just not putting yourself first, not being selfish anyway, not being selfish. So it's really selfishness versus, I don't know, what's the opposite of selfishness? Kindness or altruism? I don't know. Some people say altruism. Kindness, maybe kindness. So that's what it's about. So thinking about the many benefits of caring for others, cherishing others, then exchanging self and others, so making the firm decision, having taken all of that into consideration, that from now on I'm going to put others first. And then on top of that, the practice of taking and giving. So then there's the way of combining them into 11 steps, so maybe I won't mention that for the time being, except that the first when you combine the two into 11 steps, the first one is equanimity. So in a way that's a bit funny, because it's not, if equanimity can be the first of the 11 steps, then why can't it be the first of the, why can't we have 8 cause and effect instructions instead of 7? Why do we exclude equanimity? Do you get the point I'm making? What I'm saying is, they say with the 7 cause and effect meditation on bodhicitta, where you start off with recognizing all sentient beings as one's mother, before that you meditate on equanimity, but it's not the first one because it's not uniquely a Mahayana meditation or a Mahayana practice, whereas from recognize all sentient beings as one's mother onwards, then it is. But then when you combine these two methods of meditating on bodhicitta, the first one is equanimity. So I've heard some people say, I'm sure I've heard some teachers say that the equanimity is the usual equanimity, where you're simply, thinking about friend, enemy, and stranger, overcoming attachment to some people, overcoming the anger towards other people, having a sort of like equal feeling towards all sentient beings, that it means that. But unless I'm completely mistaken, which I could easily be, but I thought I heard Kyabje Jaram recently saying that it's a different equanimity. So there's a special equanimity, which I've never seen written down, but I heard a few times. So it's equanimity where you're thinking, let's see, there's 9 meditations to do, and at the end of each meditation you think, because of that, from now on I will help all sentient beings and cultivate sort of helpful thoughts, the wish to help all sentient beings without any kind of bias of attachment and anger. With the other equanimity, it doesn't have that component of I will from now on act to benefit all sentient beings and cultivate the wish to help benefit or serve all sentient beings. You see the difference between those two types of equanimity? One is just working with attachment, anger, and ignorance, friend, enemy, and stranger. The other one, on top of that, is adding the thought, I'm going to help all sentient beings and also cultivate the intention to help, to serve all sentient beings. That's the difference between the two. That's the difference between the two. So, maybe I finish off by talking about that equanimity. I can't remember if I mentioned that before. Can't remember if there was time. But anyway. So, you have 6 things to think about, which they say are like on a conventional level, and then 3 on a deeper level, sort of ultimate level, they call it. It's not really to do with conventional truth and ultimate truth. So conventional level means, first of all, you have 3 things to think about, sort of relative to others, then 3 relative to oneself. Relative to others means thinking all sentient beings, absolutely all sentient beings, are the same, exactly the same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So you meditate on that, and then you reach the conclusion of that of that meditation, and then you make the decision, because of that, from now on I shall act to help all sentient beings and cultivate the intention to help all sentient beings without any bias of attachment and anger. And the conclusion is going to be the same at the end of each of these 9 things to think about. Then the second one is thinking. So the second and third one are sort of like taking examples. So, for example, for some reason there's the number 10. If you've got 10 poor people, let's say 10 beggars, they say 10 beggars anyway, coming to your door. So you've got you're a wealthy person and you've got 10 people come to your door begging. It would be wrong to favor some. Maybe the ones that look nice, you're going to help. The ones that don't look so nice, you're not going to help. Maybe the young ones, you're going to help. The old ones, you're not. The nice looking ones, the ones with a nice face, I'm going to help. The other ones I'm not going to. The ones that smile at me, I'll help. The other ones I'm not. Anyway, it would be wrong, right? It'd be kind of petty. The right thing to do would be to help each of them according to their needs. So just like that, then and anyway, same conclusion. And then the third one, you're thinking, the third of these 9 points, you're thinking, like for example, if I'm a doctor and 10 sick people come to me looking for a cure to their illness, again, it would be wrong to help them in terms of, the ones that are nice to me, I'll help. The ones that are not, I'm not going to help, and so on, just like before. And then the same conclusion. So there's those 3 go together, thinking about it from their point of view. Then also from one's own point of view, all sentient beings have been so kind to me. So they've all been so kind to me. And of course, there's a lot of meditation to do there. All sentient beings have been so kind. Therefore, same conclusion. Therefore, from now on, I will help all sentient beings and cultivate the intention to. In other words, we're talking about helpful in deeds and helpful in thoughts, without any kind of bias of attachment and anger. Then, in case you think, well, they've all been very kind to me, but they've also all harmed me. They killed me, they've tortured me, they've cheated me, they've lied to me, they've done all sorts of bad things to me as well. So you might think, well, they helped me and they've also harmed me. So, it's kind of like they cancel each other out. So I don't need to repay their kindness or anything. I don't need to. It's not necessary. So then, the thing to think about is, so with this, the second one is their kindness outweighs their harm. They have harmed me, but that's nothing in comparison to the way they've helped me. So that's quite a big thing to think about. Yeah, I'll leave you to think about that one, because you might find yourself thinking, well, in what way have they helped me more than they've harmed me? Anyway, I mean, besides anything, one way of looking at it is, you see, being kind is natural. Harming is something you only do when there's something wrong with your mind. Like anger, for example. You lose control, anger, you're not in your right mind, you harm. Anyway, so that's one thing to think about. Then the third thing to think about is, if you've got a bunch of people, I mean, it could be humans who are, on lining up to be executed, or it could be sheep going to the slaughter or whatever. But anyway, when you're just about to be taken to die, it would be ridiculous to squabble amongst yourselves. This is maybe a little bit more to think about. It's kind of true, isn't it? You're sitting there with somebody who's, both of you are just about to be taken out to be executed, and you start arguing with each other. And it'd be kind of ridiculous, wouldn't it? You're just about to be executed. I mean, Anyway, so that's the thing to think about, and the same conclusion. So that's those three for in terms of oneself, and so that's the 6 on a conventional level. Then the 3 on the ultimate level is to do with these 3. I think I don't know. They say ultimate. What it's talking about is somehow analyzing that way of thinking. The way of thinking of, these are the ones I'm attached to, the ones I'm going to help. These are the ones, that are on the opposite side, I don't like, I'm going to harm. So if that way of thinking was valid, then the Buddha would also think that way. The Buddha would help people that are close to him, and feel like well disposed towards people that are close to him, maybe family members, friends, and so on, supporters, and would, like we are, and would somebody who's harming him would, he would also feel bad towards, have bad thoughts towards. And they tell the story here of one time when Devadatta. Everyone knows about Devadatta, right? Devadatta is the one that always was competing with the Buddha and trying to harm him, trying to kill him. Actually, something I heard quite recently, actually. is that even before the Buddha was born, Devadatta's mother was plotting to kill the what's her name, Maya Devi, Maya. And anyway, the Buddha's mother, and the Buddha was plotting to kill her and him, the child. So anyway, yeah. So all sorts of stories about things that the Buddha, that Devadatta did to harm him. But he was ill, and so the Buddha said, if I feel any difference in affection towards Devadatta and my son Rahula, or no, yeah, it must have been. If it's true that I feel no difference in affection towards these two, may Devadatta be cured, and so Devadatta was cured. So anyway, yeah, so that's something to think about anyway. If that was the right way of thinking, the Buddha would think that way as well. So that's one thing. Then another thing is that if you look at our way of thinking, our feeling of like friend, enemy, neutral person, it carries with it the sense of things. This is how things are. Things are fixed like that. But actually these things can change. So we know from meditation on the other kind of equanimity, also know from meditating on the drawbacks of cyclic existence. What is it? The maybe six or seven drawbacks of cyclic existence. One is the suffering of uncertainty, how things are always changing. Anyway, so somebody who's a friend now could be your worst enemy tomorrow, and vice versa. I mean, I'm sure we've all had, I don't know, maybe we haven't all had the experience, but I guess we've all had the experience where you meet somebody and you can't stand them, and then maybe something happens and you become very close. So like that, yeah. So if my way of thinking were right, then things would be completely fixed. But they're not fixed; they're changing all the time. So kind of more undermining that way of thinking. And then also there would be it would be absolute. It would be it would be completely absolute. It would be absolute. In other words, well, then this is where they start talking about this mountain and that mountain. So the thing is, when you're on this mountain, you look over there and you think that mountain. But then when you go down this mountain, you go up to the top of the other mountain. Then that mountain that you were calling that mountain, then now you start calling it this mountain, and the one that you were on before you call that mountain. You say that mountain over there. If it weren't relative, if it were absolute, then even when you go down the mountain, this mountain, you go to the other one, then you'd still be calling the mountain you were previously on this mountain, and the one that you're on now, you'd still carry on calling it that mountain. And yes, so it would be like that, In fact, we feel like a sense of the person being our enemy because of the fact that we think that they've harmed us in some way. Maybe they really did. Okay, so anyway, it would be, so it's like that. It would be like that, this mountain and that mountain. So each of these 9 points, same conclusion to from now on, I'm going to be equal in, unbiased in my actions and thoughts to benefit sentient beings without any kind of bias of attachment and anger. Okay, so that's where we got today, and then, well, I just mentioned that having gone through the Bodhisattva, then there were some other things, I think, to do with the wishing mind and different commitments from that, and then we started the 6 perfections. So we've done generosity, we've done morality, and now we're on patience. So anyway, we've got these 6 classes, and then there's a 1 week break and another 6 classes, so that takes us to the end of May, and then there'll be some retreats and breaks and so on here and there during the year, but then we've got June, July, August, September, October, think that's it. October, November maybe. So we should be able to get through the 6 perfections, and the next thing, the 4 means of gathering sentient beings, and we should get well into the karma binding section, which goes on for a long time, a long section, and then another one, insight. Sometimes it's going to be a bit difficult, but anyways, it won't all be difficult. Yeah, anyway, so that's that. Yeah, that's that for today, I think. So if we can, so we didn't have any break, didn't have any meditation break. Had a little bit of meditation at the beginning, I think. Anyway, so if we can finish off, please, with the dedication prayers. So the thing is, in the following weeks, it won't be quite the same. We'll have some meditations at the beginning, talk a bit, and pause now and then for some meditation, and like that. Do more meditation at the beginning, like I was with you. Maybe not last year, maybe the year before. I can't remember. Somehow got out of the habit, but do some practice together in the beginning. Then talk a bit and think a bit as we're going along, and then see how things go. So because of all of this merit we created by, listening, thinking, talking with, pure Bodhisattva motivation, as well as all of the merits of the past, present, future of oneself and others, including all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline but increase more and more. Okay, please keep going. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantapatra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. Due to virtue, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigrated beings without exception to that state. So I think if we just read this next thing, then more or less stop there. Due to past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. So please also dedicate especially for the quick return of Gyaltsab Rinpoche, for everything to go perfectly in his new life. Also, Tiso Rinpoche passed away during the winter. He was a really great Lama. Some of us met him. He came to Nalanda as well, but anyway, he came to Land of Medicine Buddha, I think maybe a couple of times. More Vajrapani. Then also Gyaltsab Dairo Rinpoche passed away. He was a little bit on the young side, which was really quite shocking and quite tragic, really. He was either nearly 70 or 70. So that's pretty young, isn't it? I don't know if there's anybody here thinking 70 is quite old. But I think there are some of us here thinking 70 is very young. Okay, so anyway, also for everything to go well with their coming back into the world and serving the Dharma and sentient beings. Okay, thank you, and see you next week, I hope.
Thank you, Venerable.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you